the Super Bowl is all about storylines, and that's the first thing I'll ever talk about when I talk about a Super Bowl. When I look back on a Super Bowl, obviously this is a rematch. Super Bowl 49, the last time these two teams played in a Super Bowl. In fact, it was they've only played 3 other times since that game. These two franchises, they've played once every 4 years since that game. Playing last year in a game where Geno Smith led a game-winning drive again, like he does in overtime, and Jason Myers kicked a field goal to win. But this is the first Super Bowl since, or this is the rematch since Super Bowl 49. Do you guys remember who the halftime show was for Super Bowl 49?
I do not.
Me neither.
Katy Perry.
Oh, really?
And the left shark, if you remember that meme.
Mm-mm.
Okay, you guys need to look at that meme.
Okay.
That was an iconic one. The left shark essentially created a social media account, and he got really famous for being the left shark, meaning the shark on the left of Katy Perry in the halftime show. That was one of the most iconic halftime shows of all time as well. That Super Bowl 49, just to like look at the storylines going into that game, and I went back and watched the entire game. One of the great if you have NFL Plus, they have every game since 2010. And so if there's games that you love, like you guys both love Super Bowl 50, go back and watch that game. You can watch the entire broadcast. They cut out the commercials.
That's fire.
And so I went back and watched Super Bowl 49, just like I had watched it from my house hosting the party back 11 years ago now. For the storylines of that game, New England, it was amongst the Deflategate event. 2 weeks prior was when they had played with deflated footballs in the AFC Championship game against the Indianapolis Colts, and the investigation was like super young in the investigation. It was the talk of the game 2 weeks leading up to the game, so much as Al Michaels at least 3 times during the broadcast alluded to the coming weeks after the Super Bowl as a we'll see what happens, and it felt like it was in a very dire way, like anything could happen. Chris Collinsworth talked about an interview he had with Brady before that Super Bowl where he literally sat Tom Brady down and he said, I told Tom to look me in the eye and be completely honest with me. Could you in any way know that the balls were being deflated by the equipment staff? Brady responding, looking him in the eyes, saying, absolutely not. And so for New England, vacating wins, massive fines, suspensions were all on the table at the time, and yet they have to play in the Super Bowl 49. This is like, Patriots, if you think of their long dynasty, they hadn't won in a decade. Brady was looking for his first Super Bowl in a decade. He had 3 at the time, but he had lost 2 straight to the New York Giants in 2 devastating fashions, and he had lost his last 2 AFC championships, of course, prior to the AFC championship he won that year. So a loss would mean he would be 3-3 in Super Bowls instead of what he is now, which is 7-3. That's a drastic change. Any talk about like him being the GOAT compared to Joe Montana at the time was kind of thrown out the window. He was also 37. So it was really funny and crazy watching that game, rewatching it, and thinking to myself, oh yeah, this guy's still going to go win 4 more Super Bowls.
Yeah.
It's insane, the run that he went on after winning the Super Bowl. He was also the only player on that team that was a part of the last Super Bowl win, the one that was 10 years prior. And so this was the first win for Julian Edelman and Rob Ninkovich and Dante Hightower and Rob Gronkowski and Danny Amendola. That era of the Patriots dynasty was their first Super Bowl that they got to win. For Seattle, they were off the tails of a dominant season the year prior where they, of course, destroyed the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. They had the Legion of Boom at that time. Richard Sherman was the Madden cover. Russell Wilson was in year 3, and he was already entering his prime. If you go back and watch that game too, it's insane to look back on how good he was because he was like Caleb Williams is right now. It felt like when he literally in the game, he was untouchable. He would sit there in the backfield, and there were multiple snaps where he's looking down the field. He sees the defender out of the corner of his eye, and at the last second, he just skirts off to the right, skirts off to the left, picks up 7 yards. They were looking for back-to-back, of course, and had they won the Super Bowl, they'd be the first to win back-to-back Super Bowls since Tom Brady went back-to-back a decade prior. Getting into this game, though, of course, you remember it. Malcolm Butler makes the play and the Patriots win. Here's the storylines for this year's Super Bowl for me. There are only 3 players. These are general. We'll start with 3 players that remain in the NFL from the last time these two teams played that were on the field that day. Can you guys name those 3 players?
So 3 players.
That were on the field and are still in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson.
Yes.
I have no idea. Other than that,
Can I get a position for one
Yes,
of them?
one of them plays linebacker and one of them is a quarterback.
Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner.
Yep.
oh yeah,
Old as dirt.
and then another quarterback besides Russell.
Yes, and he was did not start a game this year, but he's a backup.
Did not start.
He was on the Patriots. Is it Jimmy G?
Correct, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, did he technically take the field in this game?
He was. He walked on the field to.
All right,
hoist
I
the
guess he was
trophy.
on the field. I
Yeah.
guess he was on the field. We'll give it to him.
Those are the only 3 players that remain in the NFL from the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl that played that day. This is also the second Super Bowl played at Levi's Stadium, the first since, of course, Super Bowl 50, which we've already talked about. Do you guys remember what the halftime show of that Super Bowl was?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, it's one of the least memorable ones. It's Coldplay, featuring,
yeah.
of course, special guest of Beyonce and Bruno Mars. Insane,
What a
weird
combo.
matchup.
Yeah.
It was a really weird halftime show as well. It's going to be an interesting dynamic with this one. It was a halftime show that was essentially an all daylight too, so that you didn't have your kind of like dark light shows that you'll have at Super Bowl halftime shows like Kendrick Lamar had last year. I'm curious to see how that'll look this year with this game. For the specific teams, and we'll get into the New England Patriots first. New England is already the first team to make a Super Bowl a year removed from losing 13 or more games. We already talked about they were 8-26 the last 2 seasons. This will be their 12th Super Bowl appearance all time, meaning they will have gone to a Super Bowl 1 in every 5 seasons since the history of the Super Bowl. They also are the only Super Bowl team to go to a Super Bowl in 4 straight decades. With a win, New England would pass the Pittsburgh Steelers and stand alone with the most Super Bowls by any franchise. For players specifically, for people specifically, we'll start with Mike Vrabel. He's going to look to be the first person to win a Super Bowl as a player and a coach for the same franchise. And that's a coach of as a head coach, not just a coach of any position. It would also solidify him as one of the greatest coaches in the game right now. I think that's kind of the one thing that's not on his plate that a lot of these great coaches like Andy Reid have on his plate. For Drake May, the only Super Bowl he ever attended, which is a story you'll probably hear during the broadcast and a few more times this week, was Super Bowl 50. He was a Panthers fan growing up in Charlotte. He and his father drove to San Francisco, and he was just 13. Now he'll play in the same building at age 23, making him the second youngest quarterback to start in a Super Bowl ever. Only one who was younger, which was Dan Marino, who also made it in his second season. Dan I'm pretty sure, and I don't know if I have this correct, was a day younger than how old Drake May will be in this Super Bowl. So they're essentially the exact same age.
I saw it as a larger difference.
I may have gotten that,
But
from
it's
the wrong
close.
count.
It's very
It's
close.
stupid close. They were both 23 at the time. Marino played down the road in Stanford Stadium in San Francisco. Marino also lost to an NFC West team, the San Francisco 49ers, who were 18-1 that year and led by Joe Montana. May, with the win, of course, would become the youngest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. And so this kind of gets to my first talking point with the storylines, and specifically with Drake May. Drake May could be the first of these young quarterbacks that we've seen for the past decade to pop in year 2 and then win the Super Bowl, and he would have this over everybody else, and that is himself. This year, he was second in MVP voting, and he made a Super Bowl. Last year, Jaden Daniels made the conference championship game. It was his rookie year, but young quarterback. In 2023, Brock Purdy was 4th in MVP voting. and made the Super Bowl, lost. C.J. Stroud in 2023, his rookie season, had the number one offense in the league, won a playoff game. In 2021, Burrow's second year, he made the Super Bowl and lost. In 2019, Lamar was the MVP. He was number one in touchdowns. He was the number one overall seed and lost at home in the first playoff game. And in 2018, Patrick Mahomes was the MVP. He had 50 total touchdowns. He was the one seed and made the conference championship game, ultimately losing to Tom Brady. That was in his second season. Drake May would be the first to win a Super Bowl of that bunch. So my question to y'all is, does Drake May being this good, this fast, surprise you at this point in his career?
No, it doesn't. Largely because just of how I felt about him coming into the draft or coming out of UNC. I personally, I'm very happy with their choice. I was hoping the Commanders were going to take Drake May at 2 over Jaden Daniels at 2 because I was that high on Drake May, all the traits and whatnot. And then having him paired with Mike Vrabel is just kind of like a perfect matchup.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I don't think I'd sit here and be like he was going to finish top 2 in MVP voting sophomore year. Like, that's probably a little surprising. But for him to be legitimately great, that does not surprise me too much.
Yeah, and I think Drake May's been really impressive, but I don't want this to kind of like overshadow the job that Mike Vrabel has done because he's done a fantastic job. His time at Tennessee, he led them to the number one overall seed in the AFC. They end up losing, I think, their first game that year, and then gets fired, takes a year away from head coaching. But he was kind of in last year's or 2 years ago, and also last year when he took the New England job, I feel like he was kind of like one of the top names that kept circulating around, but not circulated enough. And then he kind of lands at New England. It makes a lot of sense. And then he goes on to lead them to this really great run, 9-0 on the road, I think, at this point. So while Drake May has been really good, I think he kind of got lucky and kind of fell into the hands of who could turn out to be a really, really great NFL coach. And he's still a young guy. So, I don't say he got lucky, but I think that the stars kind of aligned that Vrabel got his guy and May got his coach that he needed. Almost kind of like a Tom Brady, Bill Belichick stars aligning scenario where
same with Mahomes
exactly,
and Andy Reid.
Exactly.
Is an example of that where it's part of the game is being put in the right position. Johnny Manziel was going to be the greatest quarterback of all time, but sadly the Browns drafted him.
Yeah.
It's not his fault that he didn't study film. It's the Browns' fault.
Yes, correct.
Joking, of course, but Drake May was put in a great spot. I will say, though, he has performed better than I thought he would at this point, and I can look back on the way that I discussed him coming into this year where I said, to paraphrase, I said I don't think he is going to take that big of a leap compared to what he did the year prior, and we multiple times, us as a group, said that we felt like this was a team that was going to be led defensively, and they had the number one offense in the league, New England did, or in the top 3. So they have been great because of Drake May, and it is, for me, surprising that he has been good this fast, and here he is on the doorstep of, having something that all of those quarterbacks, Jaden, Brock Purdy, Stroud, Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, don't or didn't have at that point in their career a Super Bowl trophy in year 2.
Most of them still don't have one. I mean, Mahomes
exactly.
is the only one that does.
Of those New England storylines that I gave, which one for y'all sticks out the most to you, I think? Or is there another storyline for New England that you think in a win holds a lot of impact to you?
I think I don't want to completely sidetrack because I think a different storyline that holds a lot of weight for both teams. So we'll finish talking about this and we can kind of get into that.
Oh, that's the same question with Seattle, and then you can say it then if you
Yeah.
want.
I love, as someone that prefers college, Drake May to be the first UNC quarterback to win a Super Bowl. It's cool. Maybe some people thought it'd be Sam Howell. I wish it was Sam Howell. As he was a commander for a while, he could have led us to great things. But no, I like that. It's
Mitch Trubisky as well.
Yeah,
True.
had a chance.
He did have a chance. But yeah, there's been a couple different.
He was the quarterback of the Bears when they went to the NFC Championship with that Khalil Mack defense, wasn't he?
Divisional round
The double doink.
or wild card round, but yes, he won the division with Chicago.
Okay. Didn't they end up going to an NFC Championship? Was it okay?
They
Just a
had
divisional.
They have been to the NFC Championship since they played Rodgers, and I think the year Rodgers went to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
But they've had a couple good quarterbacks come out from UNC in recent years, and it's it's a quarterback league, so I love the storyline there.
Yeah, Max Johnson up next, and then Gio Reyna up
Yeah.
next.
Gio Lopez.
Gio Lopez.
Gio Reyna.
Gio Reyna,
I believe
hopefully.
plays for Gladbach right now, and hopefully
Correct.
will be starting for the U.S. men's national team
Please.
come June.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Mike Vrabel thing about him kind of getting his first Super Bowl and doing it with a young quarterback and some young guys on that roster. That this is not going to be a one and done kind of situation. So I'm gonna go with the Mike Vrabel narrative.
Yeah, for me, I think it's Drake May. I think having that over the guys before him, I think really could put him in an interesting conversation as we continue with his career. I've been really impressed with his maturity that he's shown this season, and then in watching a couple of things that his mic'd up moments of big plays that he's made, like when he makes the play against Denver on the 3rd and 9 and calls his own number and scrambles out to the left and beats the defender, and then he's on his sideline and he's saying, "That's what you do. That's what you do. That's what you do." And then his leadership in the huddle, I think it's really been shocking to see, but it's the making of a quarterback that could potentially become one of the greats of all time, and we're only seeing him in year 2. For Seattle, there's a couple storylines as well. This is the 10th Super Bowl rematch of all time. The winner of the first meeting is 6-3 all time in the second meeting. So Seattle will look to make it back-to-back revenge wins for the NFC in the Super Bowl after Philly won the revenge rematch against Kansas City last year. Sam Darnold, a couple storylines for him. I think he's maybe the biggest storyline of the entire game. He's on his 5th team in 6 years, was, of course, drafted by the Jets, played for Carolina, was a backup for San Francisco, won 14 games last year for Minnesota, and then this year with Seattle. He would be the first quarterback in NFL history to win a Super Bowl after playing for at least 5 teams. Only 2 other quarterbacks have played in Super Bowl on their 5th team or more teams. He's 30-7 his last 2 seasons as a quarterback, and he will look to be the first player of the historic 2018 draft class to win a Super Bowl. Baker, of course, Josh Rosen, and then Josh Allen and Lamar
Imagine
Jackson.
someone telling you that 18 months ago, before the Vikings' fantastic season he had,
Yeah.
where he kind of showed that he deserves another real chance, or kind of got his real chance taking over for injured J.J. McCarthy. Imagine someone telling you, yeah, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, all these guys playing in their prime right now. Sam Darnold, the expected backup for the Vikings, might be the first one to win a Super Bowl.
He will be the first one. To spoil my prediction for later, but
That's crazy. We just spoiled something that's coming 45 minutes from now.
maybe more longer than then. We'll see. Other storylines for Darnold. He's also the first USC quarterback to reach a Super Bowl. 26 Trojan quarterbacks have been drafted all time, including 3 Heisman winners in Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, and Caleb Williams. None of them have ever played in a Super Bowl. Of course, Caleb is only in year 2, so give him some time. A win for Darnold, and I think this is a narrative we can talk about. We've already talked about it a little bit before. It kind of changes the lives of a lot of people that were given up on, and specifically in the NFL. But you need to be specific for me on which people, because I do think it's specific to the scenario that he's in. I think it's the true bust that bust on their first team, and not the quarterbacks that bust after getting their second contract. So like Tua, Kyler Murray, I think will be talked about as, they could do what Sam Darnold did. I don't know. Like, they had good seasons, got paid, whether you think it was right or wrong, and then what if they turn it around for their second team? I wouldn't say that. I think it's more so important for guys like Zach Wilson,
Yep.
Bryce Young, maybe, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones.
Mitchell Trubisky? Do we throw him in there? Do you think he's too old? I don't even, like,
he might be a little bit too old at this point.
a year older than Darnold.
Yeah, of course, he never got to his second contract. I think with those guys, like, they're almost, you could maybe throw Trubisky in that. They're almost guaranteed to get a second chance at some point. Mac Jones is under contract for next year. But guys like Trey Lance, and eventually maybe someone trades for Mac, but like Anthony Richardson and Zach Wilson, how do you, like, not give them some kind of second chance? I do think a win for Darnold, even if he doesn't win, even if he plays well in this game and they lose, I do think it like changes the way that we think of quarterbacks, and it really kind of rejuvenates a lot of careers and gets guys paid. So I do think it's a huge storyline for this game. Is that what are y'all guys' thoughts on that? I know we've talked about this before, but regurgitate if you'd like.
I think I'm just, and maybe I'll be one of the people whose minds has changed, but I think I'm always just of the thing of, not for all these guys, but in general, like, I have no desire to see Zach Wilson as a starting quarterback of my team. I would rather go draft Garrett Nussmeier and be like, yo,
But you would
Garrett
have said the
Nussmeier,
same thing
it's
about
your
Sam
time.
Darnold 2 years ago.
See, this is true, but also the sample size is that Sam Darnold is a bit more of the outlier than these guys. Now, I do agree. I think a lot of them are going to get second chances, whether it be premeditated second chances or, oh, hey, Brock Purdy
You
just
could
his
even argue
ACL.
Baker Mayfield falls into that. He didn't make it out of his first contract with the Browns. He goes to Carolina. He's playing practice squad defensive end.
Cool.
And then he goes to Los Angeles and starts a game on like 2 days of preparation. I think wins a Thursday night game, ends up at Tampa Bay, and now he's playing really well. He was a MVP frontrunner through 5 or 6 weeks.
Two Jimbos.
Well, you got Geno Smith as well.
Yep, that's 3.
3 Jimbos.
I'm
Well,
just saying that like
The odds are still very much not in your favor.
Sure, but with the amount of first-round quarterbacks, I think is what and all the guys that I listed besides Will Levis were first-round picks as well.
I don't think Geno was.
Geno was a first-round pick.
Was he?
I think I may have that wrong. He back in like 2013 with the Jets.
Oh, okay, that would have been before I got up there.
So those guys, like, I do think that it's like 33% chance, maybe you say it's 25% chance. I don't know the exact number on it, but it's like 3 out of 15.
Yeah.
I think you take a chance on a 20% chance a guy hits.
It just all depends on which one it is,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're not all the same quarterback. They didn't all have the same first experience on their teams. They all flash different
That's why I think
amounts.
Zach Wilson really needs another chance because his first team was the Jets.
For your argument, though, there are examples where it doesn't. Like Justin Fields is one that he's already got his second
Hey,
and
he got a
third
Pro Bowl
chance.
invite.
True.
That's pretty rare air.
But-
He even turned it down, which makes him look even more impressive, right?
Yes.
He's too good for the Pro Bowl.
Justin, he's already got his second and third chance, and it hasn't worked out. So
Yeah.
he's one like you can go and say, okay, maybe it's not him. Although Darnold was a Carolina Panther and San Francisco 49er before he was a Viking.
Sure.
And a Seahawk. So
I think it's more of like, I don't think there should be this pivot to giving all these guys second chances. I think it should just still be a thing of having an open mind and surveying them as options, but also factoring in the draft. Saying it, I'm not giving Kenny Pickett another chance. If I'm like looking at that list, I would love to give Mac Jones another chance. Because he's flashed as the backup, and like I said earlier, a lot of these guys are going to get chances because injuries abound in the NFL, so they're going to be the backup somewhere. I mean, like you said, Sam Darnold wasn't supposed to start last year. Now I think there's a legitimate case that J.J. McCarthy just wasn't going to be ready even if he is healthy, and Sam Darnold ends up, taking snaps and we go from there. But like he somewhat lucked into starting for the Vikings and then taking full advantage of it. So.
yeah. For other storylines, I got Mike McDonald. I think he would put himself in a class above a lot of NFC coaches. You could even say NFL coaches. He would join Sean McVay, Nick Sirianni, and John Harbaugh as the only NFC head coaches to win a Super Bowl as a head coach. And I think with the way that Harbaugh has gone, he hasn't won in over a decade the Super Bowl, and he only won 3 playoff games with Lamar Jackson.
Wait, you said he would join them as the only.
Current head coaches.
Okay, thank
to
you.
have won a Super Bowl.
I just heard NFC. Okay, yeah,
In the NFC.
yeah,
You have AFC head coaches like Andy Reid who have won a Super Bowl.
yeah.
And then with the way Nick Sirianni, I think he might soon be fired. Only 2 years removed from that Super Bowl. I do think Mike McDonald puts himself in a class of just him and Sean McVay in the NFC in terms of the best head coaches in football. And we'll get into this. There's one stat I have with Mike McDonald that is really groundbreaking. Those are kind of the storylines, though, for Seattle. Out of all the storylines, I know Sanders has got one. which one sticks out the most to you, or is there another one you'd like to add to this this game?
You go first, Jack.
I mean, I'll double down on first USC quarterback to potentially win a Super Bowl in Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
A storied college franchise. It's pretty shocking, honestly, that they don't have
He's the first one to play in it.
It's
First one to play,
it's the
correct.
same kind of jaw dropping as the Tua was Nick Saban's first round quarterback pick.
Yeah.
In 2020, that 2020 draft, that was the first time he had a quarterback drafted in the first round. I'm gonna throw out another storyline that affects both sides, and it's just kind of ownership and you look at some NFL franchises, specifically the Dallas Cowboys, and you look at ownership, and it looks pretty awful, right? Some of the confusion and the questions that arise from the decision making. But this, you mentioned earlier, JP, that we've seen a lot of Super Bowl rematches, and you mentioned a couple of them. I think you said we have had 10 Super Bowl rematches. This is the fastest rematch where everything from head coach down has changed. 11 years. Super Bowl 49 to now Super Bowl 60, 11 years ago. We've got some others. I have them in my notes. Dolphins and Redskins rematched in 10 years, but Don Shula was still the head coach. The 49ers and Bengals rematched in 7 years, but Bill Walsh and Joe Montana were both common denominators. And then Patriots and Eagles, Super Bowls 39 and 52, a 13-year rematch. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady participated in both. This is the fastest rematch of only 11 years where, and maybe I didn't look into the full coaching staff, but as far as roster and head coach goes, and I'm going to assume that there's not a whole lot of linebacker coaches that are, still around on the same team, but head coach down, everything's changed.
Yeah.
And so, while I'm not the biggest Robert Kraft fan, he's done a really good job of managing the GM position and then bringing in the right guys. And then the same goes for the Seahawks, going from Pete Carroll, a guy who won a college football championship, a national championship at the college level and won a Super Bowl, and went to another one at the NFL level, and immediately replacing that with Mike McDonald is super impressive. And that kind of leads to what I was saying, like identifying Sam Darnold. And, Jack said it, and I think we were kind of on the same, some of us at least agreed with some of it, of like the concerns around Sam Darnold, but they identified him as the guy, being enough of the guy to move on from your multi-year starter Geno Smith and getting rid of Geno Smith. And they hit on that, and now they're in the Super Bowl. I think that just kind of speaks to the ownership and also the fan bases. It's the 12th man at Seattle is a real thing, and the support up there, and then
Cease and desist.
Yeah, okay. We can get into that. You and your A&M, your 12th man, y'all can agree to disagree on where it started. But I think those are kind of the biggest storyline for me, is the fact that this is the fastest rematch we've had where everything has changed. I
love that one. The one thing that hasn't changed is Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator, is still one, but the head coach, quarterback have changed. I think the GM spot, and the owner to Kraft and Seattle and their group as well, it speaks to what is a reoccurring thing every single year in the NFL, and that is hiring a new head coach. There were 10 new head coaches coming for this coming season. You go out there and you finding the right guy, finding Mike Vrabel, finding Mike McDonald, and of course, Mike Vrabel had success prior, but Mike McDonald hadn't been a head coach before. He was just a defensive coordinator for the Ravens, and you find these guys, and they have very early on already put success in that locker room. I think it speaks to how difficult that can be, and how important it has to have good ownership and good GMs to pick those guys.
Exactly.
Because you can have a situation, I know he gets pooped on every 5 seconds he's talked about, but Joe Shane, the Giants GM, rightfully so, deserves to get pooped on because he's made stupid decisions, didn't find the right guy in Brian Daboll, and pay Daniel Jones instead of paying Saquon Barkley. Those kinds of moves can hinder your franchise.
They can't find the right guy in Cleveland, and they can't get out of their own way by telling prospective head coaches, oh, this guy has to stay. Like, this coordinator, this DC, this OC has to stay. They can't get out of their own way. And so they identify, oh, this could be the guy, but then they just put their foot in their mouth and they mess that up. And that's something the Seahawks and the Patriots haven't done, right? They found their guy and they did what it took to get him there, and then did what it take to get him what he wanted, the weapons he wanted, the quarterback and Drake May and Sam Darnold, the defensive talent that I'm sure Mike McDonald wanted in the cornerback room, and you bring in DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency. So, I mean, it's awesome, both those stories and both the management in both of those franchises And it makes sense. That's how you sustain success across multiple decades and across multiple quarterbacks and head coaches. It's good management at the very top, and then that trickles its way down into success in the lower levels.
Absolutely. The final kind of like storyline I have, and this kind of goes ahead and gets into the game. It's been the schedule. It's been a huge talking point with New England all year. New England beat just one team with the winning record in the regular season. They also then in the postseason played playoff Justin Herbert, if you will, and I will. C.J. Stroud, who had 4 interceptions, and then a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham. They played the second weakest schedule in NFL history. The only other one that was weaker was the Los Angeles Rams, who won it in 1999 with Kurt Warner. With Seattle, they have played a very, very difficult schedule. And in fact, they have been really, really good against said schedule. Seattle's defense this year against playoff teams is 8-2 record-wise. They allow just 17 points per game, 300 yards per game. The opposing quarterback has a 14-8 touchdown to interception ratio, and they allowed conversions on just 29% of third downs. But if you take the Los Angeles Rams out of those 3 games, which, of course, Stafford played well in 2 of the 3, and the one he didn't play well in, funny enough, they won. If you take those games out, other playoff teams, not including the Rams, they are 6-1. They allowed just 12 points per game. They allowed just 250 total yards per game. The opposing quarterback is 6 touchdowns, 8 picks, and still, again, 29% on third down. So Seattle has played a really difficult schedule where they've played 10 playoff teams, 2 if you include the postseason. New England has played just 6 total playoff teams, 3 of them including the playoff games. They played Pittsburgh, the Carolina Panthers, and the Buffalo Bills. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Buffalo once as well, and then Carolina was an 8-9 fraudulent team.
Yeah, and I can do you. The Rams had, you said, 10 games against playoff teams. The Patriots had 10 games against teams who fired their head coach.
There you go.
And Jack is an A&M fan. I'm sure you can relate to that stat, given the accusations that were thrown against y'all. Y'all played, 6 teams, SEC teams that fired their head coach in 8 conference games?
I'll defend the Patriots here just like I would defend A&M.
Okay.
And, when you're out there beating up on teams, you're a large part of the reason they get fired because you're just so dominant.
Yeah, maybe that's fair. I think in a 17-game schedule, maybe it's a little different, but that's neither here nor there. It's still... That's 10 games against playoff teams and 10 games against teams that fired their head coaches. Now that is, you have to take that with a grain of salt because in that list is the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills were, in the playoffs and were, I don't know where they fell in the Super Bowl favorites, but they were, I'm sure, not far outside
Buffalo?
Yeah.
Was the Super Bowl favorite.
Until they lost?
They were second to Baltimore in the preseason. They were the 2 Super Bowl favorites, and then they were the Super Bowl favorite a couple times this year.
Yeah. So that is, and also in the defense of the New England Patriots. And I have been vocal about my questions about the New England Patriots, and I'm not going to get into, fully what I have decided there, but I'm just throwing that out there. That's something to consider. It's another part of it. We talk about their schedule. That's another aspect of their schedule that you have to, whether you believe it matters or not, whether you believe it changes the fact that they went 9-0 on the road or the fact that they went 14-3, like that's just the reality.
Absolutely. A few other stats I got, and then we can get into specifics, and we're gonna start with quarterback play. This is a pair of top 5 offenses and top 5 defenses, both of these teams. This is the first Super Bowl ever to feature 2 teams that are both top 4 in points per game and points per game allowed. So an elite matchup. Patriots, maybe you could say it's schedule-wise. That's neither here nor there. I think we're all in agreement that not schedule reliant. It is a factor, but we don't think it's the factor. Patriots are looking to be the first team in NFL history to beat 4 top 5 defenses in the playoffs. They beat the Chargers, Texans, and Broncos en route to the Super Bowl. They were the first team to ever do that en route to a Super Bowl. And then the bye week is not something that's talked about enough with Super Bowls, and it's how do teams do when they prepare and get the extra week. Mike Macdonald is 2-0 as a head coach off a bye in his 2 seasons as the Seattle Seahawks head coach. Both wins were on the road They won at Washington this year on Sunday Night Football against Jaden Daniels. And then last year they won at San Francisco. Mike Vrabel is 0-1 off a bye with New England. This year a loss at home versus Buffalo. But he was 6-0 off a bye with Tennessee as the head coach. So both teams are great when it comes to having the extra week of preparation. And, of course, that'll play even more so a factor in the Super Bowl with the extra week of preparation. A little bit different, though, because you got your Super Bowl media days. You got to travel out to the Super Bowl facilities. There's a lot more pressure on it. It's a lot different than Week 12 to Week 13, as it is Conference Championship to the illustrious Pro Bowl, which, of course, is being played tonight, by the way. If you're watching this live, it's being played on a Tuesday night, the Pro Bowl.
Makes sense.
Look how far we've fallen.
Yeah.
And
No, you just got to see the vision. It's there.
I don't think I've seen a promo for it yet.
I haven't either.
So they're not even putting marketing budget into it.
They've given up.